Our son had night terrors after a break-in. To help him sleep, we installed a small light show in his room. Our neighbor complained it was flashing into her dreams. She threatened to sue for psychological distress. 1 week later, she filed a noise complaint at 2 a.m. while our entire family was out of town. When I checked the timestamp, I realized the noise she reported was coming from inside our house. We pulled footage from the dog cam and saw her walking into our home with a spare key. One that went missing years ago. We moved into our house in Pittsburgh about 6 years ago. It's a quiet neighborhood in the southern part of the city, mostly families, older couples, some retired folks. We loved it right away. It felt safe, like the kind of place where people still knew each other's names. Our neighbor, Sheila, was one of the first people we met. She lived in the house next to ours, mid-50s, short hair, sharp eyes, always wore a tight smile like she was trying too hard. She brought us brownies the day we moved in. They were dry and overly salty, which I thought was weird, but my wife smiled and thanked her anyway. That was Sheila in a nutshell, overly polite in a way that didn't feel real. She mentioned more than once how much she loved the peace and quiet on the street. How the neighborhood used to be calmer before all the kids started moving in. We didn't read too much into it at the time. We figured she was just old-fashioned. We didn't talk to her much after that. 3 years later, we had our son, Mason. And that's when everything started to change. Sheila started dropping passive-aggressive notes in our mailbox. Stuff like, "Your baby was crying again at 2 a.m. Or, "Maybe consider soundproofing his room if he's going to scream like that." Always unsigned, but we knew it was her. She was the only neighbor without kids, and she'd glare at us from her porch when Mason cried or when we had people over. Still, we tried to stay friendly. I'd wave when I mowed the lawn. My wife brought her cookies once during Christmas. She never waved back. Then last year, our house was broken into. It happened in the middle of the night, while we were asleep. Someone got in through the back door. They didn't take much, just some cash, a cheap tablet, and a spare key to my wife's car that we kept in a drawer. They didn't even go upstairs. We didn't wake up until morning. We called the cops, filed a report, and got the locks changed on the side and back doors. We forgot about the front door, which was older and had a separate lock. Dumb mistake. But at the time, we were just trying to move past it. Mason didn't. After the break-in, he started having night terrors. Full-on screaming fits, soaked in sweat, eyes open but not really seeing. We'd find him curled up in his bed shaking. He was only 4. It killed us to see him like that. His pediatrician recommended therapy. The therapist said Mason needed something comforting in his room, a soft light, some white noise, anything that might help him feel safe. So we got a little light projector. It cast soft stars on the ceiling and walls. It moved slowly and changed colors, nothing flashy or strobing. It also played soft ocean sounds on a loop. Mason loved it. After a few days, the night terrors started to ease up. Then came Sheila. She knocked on our door one afternoon. My wife answered. Sheila didn't even say hi. She just said, "That light is flashing into my dreams." My wife blinked. "Excuse me? I can see it from my bedroom window," Sheila said. "It's interfering with my sleep. I'm extremely sensitive to light. I'm warning you now, it's causing me distress. You need to turn it off, or I'll take legal action." My wife told her it was a soft sleep light meant for children. That Mason had night terrors. That the curtains were thick, and the light didn't shine outside the room. Sheila didn't care. She said she was not responsible for other people's mental instability. That was the last straw for me. I told her to leave and not come back unless she had something reasonable to say. A week later, we got a noise complaint filed against us. At 2:04 a.m. What she didn't know was, we weren't even home. We had driven up to Erie to visit my in-laws for the weekend. Left Friday evening. Got back Sunday afternoon. The house was empty. Doors locked. Lights off. Nobody there, except our dog, Rocky. He's a rescue mutt, sweet but loud, and we always leave the dog cam on when we're away. The camera's in the living room. It's motion activated, with audio and night vision. It uploads to the cloud and saves footage for 7 days. So when I saw the timestamp on the complaint, I checked the camera. And what I saw made me sick. At 1:58 a.m., the motion sensor kicked on. The footage started. The front door opened. Slowly. Sheila stepped inside. She was wearing gloves. She moved like she knew exactly where everything was. She didn't turn on any lights. She walked down the hallway and went out of frame for about 3 minutes. Then she came back holding a small black box, looked like a Bluetooth speaker. She put it on our kitchen counter, tapped her phone, and music started playing. Loud enough to trigger a noise complaint. Just loud enough. Then she walked out, shut the door behind her, and locked it. She had a key. A key we thought we lost 3 years ago. I showed the footage to my wife. She was shaking. We knew we had to call the police, but we also knew we had to be careful. Sheila wasn't just a bad neighbor. She was in our house. While we were gone. And she had a key. We called the police the next morning. I met them outside so Mason wouldn't hear anything. I gave the officer a USB drive with the footage. Told him what I saw. He watched it twice on the hood of his cruiser. Then he looked at me and said, "She didn't break in. That's going to make this tricky." "But she wasn't supposed to have a key," I said. "We never gave her one. She didn't even ask." "That's the issue," he replied. "No signs of forced entry. No proof she stole the key. Technically, it's trespassing at best." I couldn't believe it. He said he'd file a report and forward it to the city attorney, but warned us that unless we could prove the key was stolen or she intended to do harm, it might not go anywhere. That same day, I changed every lock in the house. Front door, garage, everything. Even Mason's window latches. Then I went next door and knocked on Sheila's door. She opened it, already smirking like she knew why I was there. "You used to have a key to our house," I said. "That ends today. We changed the locks. Stay away from us." She just smiled. "I was checking on your dog. I heard barking. Thought maybe he was in trouble. The dog was fine. You didn't call. You didn't text. You just let yourself in. I did what I thought was best for the animal," she said like she was quoting some kind of law. "You left him alone in a house. That's neglect." I almost lost it. But I held it together and walked away. That week, things got worse. Someone left a dead squirrel on our front steps. Its neck was broken clean. Our garbage can was pushed over twice in 1 week, on nights with no wind. Then Mason's light projector went missing. He told us he saw someone standing outside his window the night before. I checked the camera footage again. But the dog cam only covered the inside of the house. Nothing pointed at the backyard or windows. I went to Home Depot the next morning and spent almost $600 on outdoor security cameras. I installed 4. One facing the front porch, one covering the driveway, one over the backyard, and one looking straight at Mason's window. 2 nights later, we caught her again. It was around 11 p.m. Sheila walked into our backyard, wearing dark clothes and gloves. She crouched under Mason's window, pulled something out of her pocket, and stood up. I watched the feed from my phone in real time and ran outside before I even had time to think. She was still there when I came around the corner. "What are you doing?" I yelled. She didn't flinch. Didn't act surprised. She stood up slowly, like she'd been expecting this moment. "I dropped something earlier," she said. "Didn't want to bother you." "In our backyard? Under our kid's window?" "I don't owe you an explanation," she said, stepping past me. "You come near my family again," I said. "I'm calling every news station in the city. I'll show them the footage. I'll post it online. You think people like you get away with this?" Try me. She didn't say another word. Just walked back to her house like nothing had happened. I called the police again. This time, I emailed the footage directly to the officer we spoke to before. I wrote a long report and sent it to the Neighborhood Watch group. I posted the still images on the community Facebook page. No commentary, just facts. This is what our neighbor did. This is who she is. That got people talking. 2 days later, Sheila put up "No trespassing" signs around her own yard. She started pointing cameras at our house. Then she put in a call to CPS, said we were creating an unsafe environment for our child. A woman from CPS showed up with a clipboard. Asked us questions about Mason's sleep, his therapy, the break-in. We showed her everything: footage, reports, therapist notes. She apologized and said someone had made an anonymous call, but it was obvious who. That's when we decided to fight back the smart way. We were done playing defense. My wife started digging. She used to work in admin at a law firm, so she knew how to search public records. It didn't take her long to find something. Sheila used to live in a different neighborhood, just 10 miles away, in a place called Greenfield. She'd sold her old house about a year before we moved in. There were 2 noise complaints filed against her at her old address. One from a neighbor with a toddler. Another from a family with a teenage girl who played violin. That wasn't all. There was also a small claims case. A man had taken her to court after accusing her of dumping trash on his lawn. She claimed he provoked her. The case was dismissed, but there were records of restraining orders filed, both granted and denied, by more than one person. She'd been a problem before. We weren't her first targets. That gave us an idea. I called one of the families listed in the court documents. I didn't think they'd pick up. But one guy did, Tony. He still had the same number. When I said Sheila's name, he laughed. "You dealing with her now?" he asked. "God help you. She's the queen of fake complaints. She lies, twists things, plays victim. She tried to get my wife fired from her job. Said our daughter's music disrupted her health. We couldn't do anything without her banging on the wall or filming us." I asked if he'd be willing to write a statement about his experience. He said yes. I printed it out and attached it to our file. My wife and I were building a full case, a timeline, videos, printed screenshots of messages and posts, even Mason's therapy notes, and a statement from his therapist. Then something happened that pushed everything over the edge. One morning, I opened the garage door to leave for work. My tires were slashed. All 4 of them. It wasn't a robbery. Nothing else was touched. The cameras hadn't picked it up. Whoever did it stayed out of view. But I knew. We both knew. The knife marks were clean. Professional looking. I called the cops again. This time they sent a detective instead of just a patrol officer. I handed him the full folder. He flipped through it in silence. I told him everything: the lost key, the fake noise complaint, the nighttime break-in, the standing under Mason's window, CPS, the slashed tires. He stayed quiet for a long moment, then said, "I've dealt with people like this before. But it's rare they keep going this long. She's escalating. What can we do?" I asked. "Legally." He paused. "You've got enough for a harassment charge. Maybe stalking. But I want to dig a little more before we push. Do not confront her again. And make sure every camera is recording 24/7. So we waited. For 3 weeks, nothing happened. Sheila stayed in her house. No notes. No late-night walk-bys. It was quiet. Too quiet. Then, the night before Halloween, we heard a loud crash around midnight. It came from the side of the house, Mason's room. I ran outside barefoot, with my phone in one hand and a bat in the other. Someone had thrown a rock through his window. Glass was everywhere. Mason was screaming. He hadn't been hurt, thank God, but it was close. The rock had landed inches from his pillow. I ran the footage. Sheila. hood up, rock in hand, sprinting away. She didn't know I'd added a sixth camera just 2 days earlier, one tucked inside a fake birdhouse pointed directly at the side yard. The footage was clear as day. I called the detective directly. This time, they didn't send a patrol. They sent a warrant team. They arrested Sheila the next morning. She was still in her bathrobe when they knocked. I watched from my driveway as she tried to play it off, hands on hips, yelling about wrongful accusations and abuse of authority. But when they showed her the warrant and the printed still frames from the video, she went quiet. Then she started crying. Then screaming. They searched her house. Found our old spare key in a drawer. Found the stolen Bluetooth speaker in her bedroom closet. And most disturbing, they found a folder in her office labeled Noise Log Mason. Inside were pages of notes, times, drawings of our house with red circles around windows, even photos of my son playing in the yard. The detective called it obsessive behavior. She was charged with trespassing, stalking, destruction of property, filing a false report, and child endangerment. They even got her on misuse of 911 services from the noise complaint she filed when we weren't home. Her lawyer tried to push a mental health defense. Claimed she was sleep-deprived and paranoid. The court ordered a psych evaluation. It didn't go her way. She was ruled competent. The judge issued a 5-year restraining order, barred her from coming within 500 feet of us or our property, and ordered her house sold. That last part shocked everyone. But apparently the judge saw enough in the police report and video footage to classify her behavior as a persistent threat to a minor. She tried to appeal. Failed. The house sold 3 months later. She moved out on a cold, gray January morning. Didn't say a word. She kept her head down as movers loaded her things. But before she left, she stood on the curb and stared at our house for a full minute. Then she got in her car and drove off. For good. You'd think that would be the end, right? But it wasn't. Not really. Mason got better, slowly. He started sleeping through the night again. The therapist said the most important thing we did was make him feel safe. But I didn't feel safe. I became obsessed for a while. Double-checking locks. Watching the cameras even when there was nothing to see. I'd lie awake some nights, waiting for shadows. My wife said I was slipping into the same paranoia that Sheila had. And honestly, she was right. It took me a long time to stop seeing danger in every corner. And that's the part of this I regret. I should have trusted my instincts earlier, back when she complained about the light. When she glared at Mason. When the first strange thing happened. I thought staying polite would make her stop. I thought being nice would protect us. It didn't. What protected us was proof. Cameras. Documentation. Facts. It's a lesson I'll never forget. Sometimes evil doesn't wear a mask or carry a weapon. Sometimes it lives next door. Smiling. Baking brownies. Leaving notes. And sometimes, you need to shine a damn light on it before anyone believes you. We kept one thing from that whole mess. Mason's new night light? It shines brighter than ever. And now it records. 2.